Hey guys, this is Mathius B. Got a new haircut and shaved my face finally, as you can see. So this second part of the documentary, The Man in the Dark, the life of Mathius Bryant, this is going to be a little rough. Like I honestly, like I said in the first video, I've had a very rough life, and so now we're getting into like me becoming a teenager and me entering into adulthood, like the 2000s part, and like really things just start coming to a head here as I start getting older and becoming more aware of things that are going on around me and things that are happening to me, right? So whew, now bear with me. Like I said in the first video, I write stuff down so like I can like talk about the important things. Um, you know. Okay, so anyway, guys, let me go ahead and start. Okay. So, as I mentioned in the first video, by the time I was 8, I had been, experienced a lot of molestation. None of them were by adults. They were like around kids around my age. Um, so when I turned like 10 and 11, the cousin that had started doing stuff to me, um, was still doing it. And then it stopped after, I believe it was the summer after I left sixth grade. And then I remember I asked him about it, and he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. I just left it alone, I guess, right? Because like at this point, I am in middle school, and I'm hearing people talk about like sex and drugs and stuff, right? Like, in my household, that's just like stuff that wasn't really deemed, I guess, appropriate really to talk about like with the kids or whatever, even though, like I said, all this stuff was going on around me, right? Um, so basically in seventh grade, you know, I threatened to blow up my middle school. Um, you know, I think that's the year I definitely started to feel different. Like, in middle school, I got diagnosed with Asperger's. I can't remember. I think it was the eighth grade I got diagnosed with Asperger's. And I didn't really accept that I had a mental illness till like I was 17. But they sent me to Rivendell, and I was there for 2 weeks. Um, you know, and I really I was wanting help, but like I didn't know how to talk to people. Like I didn't really have a voice. Like, I had a voice, but like I feel like, I didn't matter. Like people weren't listening. I didn't understand like a lot of things about the world, right? Um, and it was around this time, and I just, you know, things were just changing. Like things were coming to a head. My parents, I guess separated again. My mom had her own house, and me and my sister were living with her, and my dad had his, you know, apartment across town, and resentment started to build against my parents. Then, you know, um, one night my dad told me he was going to come get me, and I waited and I waited for my dad, and he never showed up. And then when I was 11 in the sixth grade, I wanted my dad to quit smoking cigarettes for my birthday, because that's when like we were doing like, you know, the dare programs in school, and I talked about like saying like drugs and cigarettes and alcohol. And I was like, well, I don't want my dad to have bad lungs. I want him to be healthy, right? So he told me he would, and then he lied to me. And so like eventually I just didn't want my dad around, and like I started to have a resentment against my mom, because my mom, even though like when I was younger, like I was like, I want to be back home with dad. eventually that, that changed, right? Because, he's just not, he's letting me down. Like at this point, he's starting to transition more into like not my hero that like I looked up to when I was like a boy, but now it's just like this is just a man I don't want in my life. Um, and my parents loved each other. I know that. They were married for like a long time, but they just had a very unhealthy relationship, and I honestly can say that they probably shouldn't have stayed together in the long run. And I'm just gonna call it what it is. Um, you know, um, Around this time, I also started experiencing like bullying at school. Because like I'm black, and because I had the girly voice. I came out like originally in the 8th grade, and just that wasn't something that was really acceptable. Like there wasn't really any other like you know kids that were like that. Like honestly wish I never would have said anything. My mom would try to tell me like don't tell people, but I would, and just because I don't know why. I guess I wanted people to know, like people would ask, and I would say no, and then finally I guess I was starting to get more comfortable with it, right? And at around this time in 8th grade too, I start telling people that I've been molested, and and that's when friends at school were telling me I need to tell someone. Um, and then I'll get to that point like when I finally decided to do that here in a second. And so basically, in 8th grade, things get worse. Like I start rebelling at home. You know, I start getting mouthy with both my parents. The second time my dad actually got physical with me, I called my mom the B word because she called me. Well, I would say it under my breath. I wouldn't like say it to her face, but like she was like, "No, you're the B word, right?" And I was like, "No, you're the B word." And like I was so mad, like I was storming out the house, like I was on my way to the door. I was so angry, and then my dad like hops out of her bed like that she shared at the like front of the apartment because like at this point we've moved back in with him and we're living in his apartment. He pushes me up against the wall, and then like I get sat in my room, and then he hits me really hard like on the side of my head like twice. Like my dad like used to be in like the military, and like my dad worked factory work, so he's really big, so like just, and so that was really, I don't know why that was kind of traumatizing for me. Like I knew I'd messed up, but like just I don't know, just I also started noticing around this time is that, my sister gets treated differently than I do. Like I feel like my dad's more harder on me than he is her, which, I feel like, growing up I was a little bit more difficult to deal with because of like, all the things going on and whatever. But, I feel like, he was more hard on me because I was a boy, right? Um, and, around this time, like I said, I start coming out, my dad says he's not happy with it, right? Something that was also really traumatizing for me around this time, I played with Barbie dolls growing up as a kid because, like, growing up, like I said, I didn't have many friends. So, like, a lot of the times I would have to play with, like, my cousins, which was typically, like, girls that came over to the house, right? And, so I would play with them, like, but we would play, like, video games and stuff too, right? Um, this instant day, I remember, I believe I was in the 8th grade. I was only like 13. Like, I was bored at home. Like, I don't think anybody else was there. So, like, I get these Barbie dolls and, like, I start playing, like, they're cheerleaders, right? Because I want to get this routine together, like, so I can play with my sister and my cousin later. Because we used to, like, do, like, competitions and stuff, like, in the little Bring It On movie, right? And so my dad, finds me playing with these Barbie dolls, and then like my dad like scolds me, and then like tells me that if he sees me with another Barbie doll in my hand, he's gonna snap my neck, right? And like, so I never touched a Barbie doll again after that. And then like another instance where he showed that like I wasn't really allowed to do, I guess, anything that he deemed feminine or whatever. Um, this was like I think in like 6th grade or like the summer of 6th grade, like I think it was like my sister's birthday party. It was some girl's birthday party, and like these girls taught me how to play patty cake, right? And so like he pulled me to the side that day and got on to me, and, like, so I never played patty cake again like that. So, this is me, like, being taught, that perfect example of, what I guess men are supposed to be acting like, what boys are supposed to be acting like, this masculinity, like, stereotype, right? So like, yeah, so of course, a lot of anger comes from that because, I feel like I can't be myself, right? I can't do anything right. I'm getting bullied at school, like I don't like my home life, I just felt trapped. Another thing that I was dealing with at this time was, I had developed an eating disorder. I don't know why I stopped eating. I think it was because, like, I just wanted to feel like I had some control in my life. Like, I wasn't happy. Like, I wanted to control, something in my life. It wasn't about, like, wanting to, like, punish anyone. It's just like, that's when I guess I started to show, like, suicidal tendencies. During this time, my dad, there was one night I was in eighth grade. I hadn't ate that day. And so, like, my dad, I wasn't wanting to eat. I was refusing to, right? And I remember specifically, my dad, pinned me to the ground and was trying to shove this piece of peach cobbler into my mouth. It is still to this day, like, one of the most traumatizing things ever. Like, my mom came in there and, like, was shaking him, and finally got him off me, And like I said, like, I was like a skinny 13-year-old kid. I was not athletic, I wasn't a very, violent person by all means, And like I said, I hadn't been eating. So, of course, I'm definitely don't have much strength there, And so, like, now looking back at it, I feel like that's probably the reasons why I was probably unhappy with my mom too, is because, like, he keeps continuously, showing things and doing things around me to me. And, I honestly feel like, he shouldn't be at the home in the home with me, and like, or I shouldn't be in the home, right? And like, like, my mom's favoring my sister, and so I feel trapped. Like, what the hell? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how the fuck do I get out of this, right? Like, I feel fucking trapped. And, at this point, you know, um, something else that happened at this point was when I was around 14, like the summer after I finished eighth grade, my cousin began to started coming on to me again. I remember there was one day we were walking and he asked me if I would do something with it. And I was like, isn't that like wrong or something? Because like I said, like, at this point I've had like the sex ed classes and like, I've started to catch on like, okay, like I know what's going on here. And, he talked his way into like, me doing things with him again. And like I said, now I know like, I was being manipulated and, I was being molested and raped, right? Um, but like I said, at that time I didn't know any better. Like I said, I was so naive and I was so clueless. And, just when I would talk about these things with people, just, uh, they would tell me to tell somebody, and I said I was going to get to that point. Yeah, so like those were things that were going on up into middle school, and like I honestly feel like now this needs to be like a 5-part video because like my time is almost out on my phone, and I need to like get into like the high school years. So we're up to like 14 guys. But I will say before this, at this point, I'm starting to like explore my sexuality with someone who is no longer living. That was the first guy I ever gave head to. And then like I also got head from a girl from the first time ever. So, I'm exploring out into like, the sexuality stuff, But like even those weren't my ideas. Like, it was like the girl was like a cousins of mine idea. And then like the guy, like I said, like he came on to me, and I was like, I don't know, and like, but I did like him, so I went ahead and did it. 'Cause like I said, this one I've been exposed to sex so much, so it's like you get used to it, right? You know, um, yeah, but that's all for middle schools and up to this point. So we'll stick for a part two of this video, guys. Be back. Peace.